Hello everyone, this is Ishan and welcome to lecture number 6. This lecture is based on the COVID-19 restrictions on the Australian tourism sector. Tourism is essential to the economy of those countries that attract high number of tourists and include highly sought after tourist attractions. Australia is no alien to a tourist economy. India alone has been a big target group for tourism in Australia. Back in the 90s, Australian tourism was promoted by Ruby Bhatia, and this has continued until present time with the Kangaroos, Opera House, sporting events being major tourist attractions for Indians alone. Similarly, European and American tourists travel to Australia for hiking and adventure sports. Surfing, diving, and climbing rocks and mountains are also very popular activities for Western tourists in Australia. Let us now look at the importance of tourism around the world and not just Australia for a moment. The global tourism sector now supports 292 million people in employment. Imagine having 1 in 10 person employed around the world employed because of tourism related activities, either directly or indirectly. However, not all tourism-based activities help the countries. Many times the money spent on tourism ends up leaving the country. That's correct. I've made this point in my Vocal for Local lecture, if you have watched it. In that video, I mentioned how it is not just about making in India, but it is about focusing on who is making in India and where are the raw materials coming from and where the profits are going. The same holds for tourism as well. In India alone, an estimated 40% of all money spent by tourists ends up leaving India. The money left India and did not constructively assist the local economy because the foreign owned tourist operators, foreign airlines, foreign owned and operated hotels, imported drinks, these were the things that tourists were consuming. It also was due to imported food and expenditure by tourists at Domino's, for example, and Pizza Hut maybe, instead of the local Irani cafe or Udupi pizza and the roadside sandwich. Similar issues are faced by Australia as well. But these issues are not as severe as those in India, as Australia has done a pretty good job in supporting their local economy with regards to tourism. Mind you, it's just tourism that I'm talking about. The same cannot be said in some other sectors where we have heavy Chinese investments. However, our focus today is tourism in Australia. Let us now look at how tourism assessed any economy in the first place before we shift our focus to how it helps Australia. So let us look at the benefit of tourism on the economy of overall the world and the global economies. When tourism grows, there is an increased demand for more local supplier services. This creates jobs in those areas. With increasing demand and with attractive industry, the more tour operators are attracted. The more the tourists they attract and register, the more the spending and more jobs are created again. This makes the tourist area more attractive and increases the demand for the tourist place. More local tour operators and businesses in that tourist area boom, and they create more jobs and encourage more spending through consumption in those areas. Now, the jobs that I'm talking about and the area in this particular tourist attractions that gets for which the demand increases or who have an increased contribution to the GDP are covered later on. So this money that is spent is helpful in improving the infrastructure, the aesthetics of the place, and both the quality and quantity of the services that are provided. This creates more jobs, and together with local and tourist spending, it helps to boost the tourism-based consumption that aids the growth of the economy. Once again, this tourism-based consumption and the jobs that are created will be covered in the coming slides. Now, with this tourism that continues to grow, the cycle continues. The economy grows, tourism grows, the economy continues to grow, and this cycle continues. So now let us look at the overall contribution of tourism to Australia in particular. Now, let us look at the tourism-based indicators, which are from the 2018 and 2019 season. The contribution of tourism towards Australian GDP, that is the gross domestic product, which shows the growth in the country through CIG and NX, which is consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports, which is exports minus imports. So that GDP is close to $61 billion, which is 3.1% of the national GDP. And it contributes to 3.4% growth towards the GDP growth as well. Tourism contributes to exports, which are worth $39.1 billion, and the consumption accounts to $152 billion. As seen earlier, the consumption assists in job creation, and the tourism industry in Australia has contributed to 666,000 jobs, or if I were to talk in lakhs, it is 6.6 lakh jobs, with a contribution of an upward employment growth of 3.3%. 1 in 19 Australian workers were directly employed in tourism. And as seen earlier, this rate is much higher if indirect employment is also accounted for. The GVA, which is also the gross added value, which is the measure of the value of goods and services produced in an area, industry, or sector of an economy. This GVA was close to $56 billion. And this contribution was more than the contribution of agriculture, forestry and fishing, utilities and information, media and communications. So all these, how they accounted for independently, the GVA contribution just from tourism was more. So now let us see where all this economic contribution comes from collectively. The contribution seen earlier is chiefly attributed but not limited or restricted to the attraction of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, national parks across Australia, the native wildlife and marine life, various beautiful and internationally top-ranked beaches and surfing destinations, island holidays, sporting events like Australian Open and Formula One, skiing and snow sports in winters, attractions within popular cities such as Melbourne and Sydney, including the Sydney Opera House, cruises, and the Uluru Rocks in the Northern Territory. In fact, one of Queensland's famous beaches on the Sunshine Coast beaches, the tourism turnover is usually around $3 billion every single year. Now, let us look at the jobs created by these tourism destinations and how they have been impacted with the border closed down. Close to 1 million jobs exist in Australia, combining both direct and indirect links to tourism. Tourism also contributes to accommodations and the building and construction industry. Close to 800,000 or 8 lakh jobs are estimated to be lost due to the impact on tourism due to border close down. Staff reductions are estimated to be 15 to 20%, meaning a loss of 99,000 to 133,000 jobs, mostly part-time, casual, or contract or seasonal roles. 1,800 jobs are to be lost in the city of Cairns alone. These jobs impacted due to an impact on tourism include those from travel agencies, tourist companies, transport companies who take tourists around, accounting jobs because accountants depend a lot on doing the taxes of these particular tourist-based businesses, the sales and marketing jobs, retail, restaurants, hospitality, manufacturing, sales jobs, sports sales and services that again depend on tourists to buy the local high-quality Australian sporting gear, and other jobs are also affected. So some of them are the specialist jobs such as zookeepers, vets, tourist guides, historians, ski coaches, diving coaches, divers themselves, boat operators, casinos and casino operators, park operators, security officials, and even crowd management teams. The loss of all these tourism-based jobs through salaries and wages into the broader economy is expected to be between $3.9 billion to $5.3 billion. It's not just the loss of these salaries and wages, but also the tax contribution which is lost. So the loss of the tax contributions based on the tourism consumption expenditure will be close to $1.5 billion. And that is how significant the impact of this border close down due to the COVID-19 situation, pandemic, has had on the Australian tourism industry. So thank you very much for watching this lecture on the economic impacts of COVID-19 restrictions on the Australian tourism sector. My next lecture will be based on the effects on the Australian retail and hospitality very specifically. So make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as doing so will actually enable you to receive updates on any videos that I upload. Now, the videos that I upload will not be just my lectures alone, but they will also include group discussions, debates, and dialogues between prominent global figures on various issues that are affecting our globalized world. Stay safe, be kind, and I'll see you next time.